Hi, I'm John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Do you know that every year roughly 9,000 people apply for a seat at the Harvard Business School, but only 930 show up in a given class? The accept rate is only 12%. We want to talk about the framework for what makes a successful and strong HBS candidate. And I can't think of anyone better to talk about that than my guest today. Devi is at mbaMission, where she's executive director, and she's their resident expert at Harvard Business School, and for good reason. Nearly 50 people in a typical year have used her assistance to get into Harvard Business School, and in any given year, she will do mock interviews with 300 different applicants. You know who applies and who doesn't get in. And now you're going to spill the secrets.
It's my framework, my observations, my experiences, and this is something that I wish people had before they come to me.
Right.
And it is something that it's been bubbling up, and I'm so happy that I can share this with you. And it is, and because I've seen so many different life stories and different goals and different geographies and different life and career paths, it's like pattern recognition. I have my own AI model.
Well, you've seen a sizable sample.
Yes.
Of the pool and a sizable sample of the people who get in.
That's exactly right. And I think a few things have changed, I think, since post-COVID. And I think this, and what we're going to talk about today is a little bit more refined kind of since then, in terms of that, more of the psychographics of kind of the motivation behind applying to business school. And believe me, a lot has changed. It'll be nearly 30, I'll have my 30th reunion in a couple of years. So clearly what worked, for my classmates is completely different now. And I think there's been another shift, I would say, kind of around COVID area in terms of how people approach the MBA, as well as kind of everything that you write about, that the MBA is the graduate degree to earn.
Right.
And I think that and what we're going to talk about today is really a result of that. The MBA is coveted. The MBA is desirable as a degree.
Right.
And so, and then HBS, it's, kind of at the top of the mountain
Sure.
in terms of schools. So there's kind of these macro factors in terms of just the value of the degree and the ubiquity of the degree and the professional desirability of the degree, but then how that translates to kind of my world of when I see somebody and are they ready? And are they ready to be an applicant or are they ready for the interview? Two different things.
So it's kind of like, what separates those who get in from those who don't?
Okay, we're going to talk about that. I'm an MBA, CPA. I love numbers. I love frameworks. I love 2x2s. I know you can't take the MBA out of me. And so I've come up with a 2x2 that we'll talk about in a minute, but might as well talk about the two dimensions. One dimension is desire. So what we talked about, the desire to earn an MBA. And then the other dimension is competence. And competence doesn't mean test scores and GPA. That is part of it, but it's also experiences. It's also ability to take risks. It's also your EQ, leadership, your soft skills. Are you managing? It's everything about your profile, candidacy, set of experiences.
But now, don't you need both desire and competence?
Yes. If there are any trade-off, I would say more of the competence.
Right.
Desire alone, and this is what I feel like, again, my observations, no statistical, I haven't run a model or anything like that, but I may, there are so many more people that have just bought into the notion of an MBA is for them. Before COVID, I would have more conversations, or the early days of COVID of, do I need an MBA or not? And there was more convincing. Of an MBA allows you to do X, Y, and Z. You don't have to do that anymore. There's so many people who've already understood that. I don't know if it's a critical mass within employers, that there are enough leadership that have MBAs that they don't need to be convinced anymore.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by the desire to earn the degree has gone up. And if the desire to earn the degree has gone up, then the desire to attend HBS goes up.
Right.
And so but the thing about desire, great, right? Like it motivates you, it opens your eyes and everything.
And we associate fire in the belly with desire.
Absolutely. Desire is super important, right? Enthusiasm, motivation, excitement, absolutely important. But desire alone,
no good.
no good.
Not for Harvard.
No, not for Harvard. Because what are you going to contribute in class? I'm really excited to be here.
Right.
Desire and competence. And also desire, admissions, there's no criteria.
Yes.
Right? In terms of the desire to earn an MBA from that school isn't that big of a criteria.
And you're making me remember something that Dee Leopold, the former managing director, said. That's a key evaluator for Harvard Business School, which is your ability to communicate something of value in a class with your classmates. It's not just who you are, what you've accomplished. What are you going to add to this educational experience that is so special?
And that's where competence comes in.
Right.
And so competence comes in so many different forms.
Yeah.
Maybe you took a risk and proposed a new project at work. Maybe you took a risk and started that startup and then it grew like wildfire. Or you took a risk and the startup didn't work, but you're still going to be credited for taking the risk and that set of experiences. Maybe it's something you did in your community.
Right.
Competence, there's no framework for competence, except that you made an impact. Maybe you grew as a leader. Maybe you just pursued something because you wanted to pursue it. Maybe it's, financial impact for your firm. Maybe you found this way that your portfolio company can make more money. Whatever it is, there's so many ways to demonstrate competence. And so it's the desire versus competence paradox. And I've seen more people, or I should say, people with stronger desire than competence want to apply. And that might be the case maybe when you're planning out your MBA a year or two in advance. And that's okay if your desire is greater than your competence. But by the time you hit submit, your competence better be higher than your desire.
So let's dig a little bit deeper on what competence really means.
Sure.
Show me in your own mind a truly competent individual who would apply to Harvard Business School.
Yeah, I have an example of somebody who I thought was, really strong competence where the competence overshadowed the desire. She went to a great undergrad, and not just in terms of the rigor of the undergrad, great grades, great scores. So the academic profile was super strong. Professionally, she was a consultant, but one that was moving up.
Right.
And one that had huge visibility with her clients. And her projects were very large teams. And for her to have that kind of visibility with her clients, I really thought that maybe we can get one of the recommendations from her work included kind of the client feedback, so we didn't have to get the client one. But they were so strong in terms of the increased responsibility she had, the way she developed people in terms of the consultants under her, the way the client responded to her. So it wasn't just, I'm a consultant, but really what you want to see in a consultant. And then there was her extracurriculars. And she wanted to move from consulting into healthcare and a startup. And that's a tough jump for a lot of people because consulting is obviously very structured and all of a sudden, you're like, what? You can, startup? Right. And especially if they haven't done a startup before business school. But because she was so interested, and her interest in healthcare was so genuine because she herself had some health issues that she wanted to solve. So she was connected, whether it was through her doctor or through friends, to her first startup, and she was just doing it on the side because she had a big day job, and that was advisory work to get them funded. They got funded. Then she moved to another startup in the same field, kind of solving the same health problem, and she did marketing. So again, more and more kind of moving up the food chain, even in startups, all the while killing it at work. And then she had a third startup, all different pockets. You're like, how does this person sleep, right? Like in terms of, but her enthusiasm and commitment to healthcare was that sincere. and then she wanted to go to business school to learn kind of the business side of healthcare. And I looked her up on LinkedIn, I don't know, maybe like 6 months ago or whatever. And lo and behold, she did exactly what she wanted to do. And that's not why she got in, because she's going to, do exactly what but it's more of like her story made sense and she was working towards something.
Right.
But this is the type of person that would have been successful no matter what.
Now, I'm thinking about the people who are watching us right now, and they're probably saying, okay, how do I compare with this example that Devi just gave? And they're going to say to themselves, oh, wow, I'm not that perfect.
It's not about perfection. She didn't think she was perfect. She just had fire in her belly and actually wanted to do something.
Right.
So it's not about how you view yourself, just do. Take a risk. Volunteer, throw your hat in the ring. If your friends are, joining a startup and you've been curious about startups, maybe you go on their strategy, join in on their strategy meetings because you're just curious, naturally curious about how startups work. Maybe there's something on the side that you can do. Maybe it's a course on AI that you can take. There's so much to be done.
Now, the underlying theme of that resume, that profile, is the person who has linked their experiences to their goals. So their competence is somehow being leveraged to articulate a goal.
That's exactly right.
That Harvard will think is achievable for this person.
For example, if this woman didn't have the 3 startups in healthcare, I think her goal to do a healthcare startup would have been stark.
And because it would have reflected in the decision by admissions.
That's exactly right. Or she would have struggled in the interview. Or may not even gotten the interview.
Right.
Or would have been grilled on why healthcare. So she had the foresight to bring her future forward.
That's funny. I would think that most people would think that MBA goals are to a large extent the province of the career management office, not the admissions office.
HBS views goals differently. And it goes back to how you're going to contribute in the classroom and how you're going to use it. It's almost like they have guardrails around the admissions process vis-a-vis the goals. If your goals aren't ambitious enough, why do you need an MBA?
Right.
So you're going to spend $200,000 to $300,000, opportunity cost included, get yourself out of the workforce to do exactly the same thing. That's a lack of imagination.
Right.
And I also say this, and I'm so glad we're talking about goals, because in the interview, it's like, okay, like in terms, as soon as the goal section, and you can't recover. And if with a strong resume, I can review somebody's goals on their resume and see if they're a strong candidate.
But there is a catch-22 in goals, right? Because you say the goal should be ambitious because obviously Harvard wants to admit people who are ambitious. But at the same time, they have to be realistic.
Yes.
So they can't be unrealistically ambitious.
I think they can. It depends on the time frame.
Yeah.
In terms of, are you going to change the world right after graduation? Maybe not. 5, 10, 20 years? Absolutely you can. And so I think it's about how you sequence your goals and how you say, I want to do this for the first, like right afterwards because I want to, see, gain XYZ experience. And then this is my long-term goal. Right. And they've already thought it through. It's not about unrealistic. It's about, can you actually communicate them? There have been other times when, again, same thing of like you're going through the interview and then where it goes south is somebody paints this huge picture. And this is a real life example. This was during the crypto craze, during COVID. And this person had this huge startup idea, leveraging crypto and small and medium enterprises and getting them all online. And it's all the mom and pops and getting them to use, and it would all be funded by crypto. And it was so complicated. It was so, it felt so burdensome when he was explaining it. I'm like, and I didn't understand why it had to be on crypto. Like nothing made sense. That was an example of like, it's an audacious goal.
Right.
But it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And it felt like he was just like grasping at all the trends.
Indeed.
And so so I didn't mind the audacity of that goal. It didn't gel.
Now, Devi, listening to you makes me think that you have no problem giving tough love to a client. Is that true?
I've been known. I've heard that a couple times.
And that's helpful, frankly. You want honest, unvarnished opinion and perspective from someone who's going to help you basically overcome remarkable odds to get into a Harvard Business School.
Yes, and I believe the best thing I could do is be honest, first of all.
Yeah.
And number two, I was a former interviewer. You don't think they're thinking that? They just don't say it.
Right.
Because they can't. But now that I'm on the other side, I can.
So when you were doing interviews for Harvard Business School, you were thinking things and holding them back because you had to.
It's not my place to. It's not my place to critique. It's not my place to challenge them.
Right.
I mean, I can a little bit, but not to be like, this idea is never going to work. I could never say that. Like in that same example, like a couple minutes ago,
Right.
I could never say this is never going to work.
Yeah. But to a client, you can.
Yes.
And you should.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
No, I think it's that. It's just the training in me in terms of, number one, you should never underestimate an HBS interviewer because they've seen everything, they've heard everything, and it's the pattern recognition.
And we should point out that HBS interviewers are essentially staffers. They're not alumni.
Correct.
They're not current students.
No, they are professionally.
This is a very serious interview. I mean, a lot of schools do alumni interviews, and they can be all over the place.
They are highly trained.
Yeah.
Highly, highly trained.
Yeah.
And both EQ and IQ.
Yeah.
They can pick up immediately in terms of just where you fall on the, in the roadmap. That, and also, I feel like that's the least I could do is to be honest. And these days, I feel like honesty comes across as tough love. But for me, honesty is how you push somebody, to meet that standard.
Absolutely. And, I think you're right. These days, it's a generational thing. Yeah.
I mean, in terms of all the teachers I've had ever were just be like, this is where you are. This is where you need to be. Okay. And we all have gaps. Right. In terms of your boss will tell you have gaps. I will tell you because the goal, it's like I tell my clients, I have the same goal you do. But a few things need to happen before you get there. And so I think honesty and having high standards they go hand in hand.
And when you get into Harvard, you should expect that the standards will be high.
Or higher.
And when you're cold called in front of a class of 89 of your classmates, you better be there and ready to perform and add value.
Absolutely. Well, the other thing is, I think it's so funny. I'm like, I want the Harvard network and I want this and, I want, and I'm going for the network, right? That's a really big reason that people, and again, understandably so. But if you have nothing to contribute, if you have nothing to say in your section, or just that you've just done a few things, not like done a lot, or as I maxed out your life or killed it at work or killed it at life, why would somebody want to befriend you and be in your study group and do startups with you? You have to bring a lot to the table to get a network.
Right.
Network just doesn't happen.
Yes.
You have to have something to share, whether it's experiences or advice or insight or, let's go on this adventure together, this startup. There's so many things that who you are brings about the opportunities to you.
Which is why a key part of the competence equation is your work experience.
That's exactly right.
Because from there, admissions can intuit what value you'll have in a classroom
That's
discussion.
Exactly right. And I think in terms of it's the value, absolutely, but it's also, this is an investment. This is expensive. Why would you go when your competence maybe can still be developed a little bit and then go?
Right.
And so the desire versus competence, I feel it more and more the more I talk to prospective candidates. And I mean, a few things, right, in terms of HBS has done a great job with its brand. I hate the way we talk about business schools in terms of their brand or this, but let's go down this path for discussion purposes. They've been consistent with their quality. They've been consistent in recruiting. They've been, there's no flavor of the month for curriculum or whatever in terms of it's still the same old case method. It's still the same old section experience. Okay, they added a section. They went from 900 to close to 950 or 1,000. Okay, fine. But it's still the same core experience.
Right.
It's still general management. It's still the same thing from over 100 years ago. So they've managed that well. So that's one thing. And I think, like I said, people are realizing that that the MBA from HBS really does open doors. It doesn't have to be convincing. You don't have to convince people anymore. But the downside is, so therefore the desire is so strong, and so many people say, I'll figure it out when I get there. But the flip side is
then
you won't get there.
Exactly.
So that's the thing, like take that extra 6 months, apply from round 1 to round 2, right? In terms of take the time to make sure that you are putting your best foot forward, which means it's that competence side that you kind of know. And direction, I mean, goals doesn't mean I'm going to do this for 3 years and then this and other thing for 2 years and then this and then that. Like I don't need I don't need a diagram of your post MBA goals. I just need to know what direction, maybe what problem you want to solve, maybe what if it's a startup, I want to solve liver issues. I want to solve gut issues. Whatever it is, I don't care what form it takes, right? In terms of if you're like, it could take on so many different forms.
Right.
Or if you say, I want to, really be a PE investor. Okay, well, maybe it's an investment philosophy that you're going to develop or the way you do investments or the way you hold investments. Maybe that's how you're going to change. There's so many ways to demonstrate your goals and your values. Even, again, I know we're talking about HBS, but even Stanford's What Matters Most to You, a well-written essay, you can divine their goals in there.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so goals are part of every single essay, whether you realize it or not.
Interesting.
Do you know what I mean? In terms of, because you're putting a composite together.
Yeah.
So in terms of if you say something in your curiosity essay, I might say, oh, wow, you know what? This person really can achieve their goals. Or I wonder how this relates to that or something. Everything is a slice of you.
Right.
And I think that's what people forget is, goals are separate. My leadership is separate. My resume is separate. My curiosity is separate. And my college was separate. And you're like, no, you're one person.
Yeah, and they all should line up, including your recommendations.
That's exactly right.
And reinforce.
That's exactly. And so that's what I'm saying. It's like that whole competence side. There's so much work to be done to really for yourself. So that way, and the stronger your desire, why wouldn't you want to increase your competence?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? In terms of, so let the desire motivate you to really invest in your confidence before business school.
Right.
And you get so much more out of it. So imagine, the person who was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but once I get to HBS, I'll figure it out. The way they use the 2 years is going to be completely different than the person who said, you know what, I am going to go into healthcare. I'm going to take this course. I might take these other courses that have nothing to do with healthcare, but I'll understand the consumer. I'll understand the mindset, or I'll understand tech, which drives, so much of healthcare investments these days. There's so many ways to, bolster what you need. Or I'm going to do, go on these treks, but I'm going to do the healthcare side of. There's so many ways to construct your HBS experience vis-a-vis your goals. To me, that's a much better way to use your 2 years.
Right. Now, in true MBA fashion, Devi, you've created a 2x2.
Yes.
So we have 4 quadrants in a typical 2x2 to determine the importance of desire versus competence. Bring us through your 2x2.
Can't take the MBA out of me. Okay, so let's take desire and competence.
So desire is on the left-hand side.
Yep.
Competence on the right-hand side.
Or the top side, yep.
Okay.
So let's say you have, and so in each one, moderate to strong. So moderate desire, strong desire. Moderate competence to strong competence. If you have moderate desire and moderate competence, it's kind of hard. What do you have to offer?
You're not exceptional enough to get admitted to Harvard Business School.
And if you don't have the desire, you may not have done the research.
Yeah.
You may not have really demonstrated the case. A case for you why you'd be a good candidate. Maybe you didn't do a lot of introspection yourself. And it feels like you just threw your hat in the ring.
Right.
Or it feels like it's the next step in your career, so let me just do it. And as the reader of applications, I can feel that. where they haven't gone far enough.
Right.
And so it feels like very superficial applications. Superficial as in they don't know themselves well enough to give me that deep insight into themselves. So, moderate desire, moderate competence, it's virtually impossible. Now, strong desire and moderate competence, this could be where you're a unicorn. You worked on like maybe the largest transaction in your field, and you had something stellar, like one thing stellar, or your extracurriculars are so amazing, but maybe can't compensate for something else. And again, you're fine, but you've done the homework on HBS. You've attended everything. You really demonstrated maybe the fit, or kind of all that. And here, I think you may have to, maybe rely on that you are a unicorn, something really unique in your profile and application, or maybe it was just luck of the draw. So I'm not saying it's definitely better than the moderate, but you're relying on a lot of external factors to get through the application process.
Yeah.
And it's also rare to if you have moderate competence, just period, it's going to be hard. However, so now we're, moderate desire, strong competence. This is where I would say in terms of you're probably going to be viewed as a compelling candidate. You probably have decent chances because your competence is greater than your desire. And admissions can see probably pretty quickly what you have to contribute because you've done a lot.
Right.
And maybe you yourself aren't completely convinced of the degree, and maybe it's one of those things of, if I get in, I'll go. Versus I'm definitely going no matter what. And you see that too, right? In terms of, and these people also have it has to be worth it to them.
Right.
They may only leave their good job if it's HBS. And then of course the holy grail is the strong desire, strong competence, where it's like, this is the candidate that every business school wants.
So
and that
there
HBS
you're in
gets.
the upper right quadrant.
Correct.
Of your 2x2.
Yep. Strong desire, strong competence. And this is where the enthusiasm jumps out of the page, the excitement, and that they're ready for this adventure called the MBA. They've written so authentically in their voice. There's no gimmicks, no myths like the other that we talked about in their application. They're just who they are. They know who they are. They know what they want. They're honest.
Right.
And authentic. They don't worry about, should I say this and should I say that or whatever. And it just oozes off of the page.
Okay, so I'm going to make a guess.
Okay,
so nearly 50 people in the newest class at Harvard Business School had your assistance in getting in. Out of the 50, I bet you that 35 were in the upper right quadrant, and then 15 were in this sort of moderate to high on either level. You think that's a good guess?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say even like 40-10.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Because the thing is, in the interview, you can tell. By the time they get to the interview, the high desire just jumps out.
Right.
High desire, high competence really jumps out.
Now, if you're in the right quadrant and you got the right stuff, to use an astronaut phrase, why do you need a consultant?
Why do you need a consultant? Because we're human, and people still have, once they get to the interview, you'd be surprised how many freak out.
Right.
Of like, oh my God, it happened.
Plus, it also doesn't mean that you're capable of presenting your best self after all the work and achievements that you have.
Yeah, I think even if you're in the strong competence, why do you need a consultant? Because, and I'll tell a few reasons. Number one, you only know how to speak your job.
That's right.
The fewer the employers you've had, the more you are going to sound like your employer. If you've only had one employer, case in point, in round 2, phenomenal experience. He was in a corporate rotation program for a Dow Jones company, and just worked his way up. And the experiences that he had, just from the resume, I figured he would be admitted. He was speaking lingo. He was speaking as if he's presenting to his boss, and how to frame
acronym and on
absolutely. And then
phrases.
And then he read somewhere that you have to speak really fast in the interview.
Oh my God! Did he have an engineering undergrad?
No, he did not. That happens too. And so it was like word salad.
Oh.
And then he's like, I'm really supposed to talk about the strategy I developed? Yes, you're supposed to talk about the strategy you developed. And so it was really changing behaviors.
Right.
So, but did he have the competence? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so if we, that's the thing, interview prep becomes so much more fun. I know, hard to believe, when you have actually material to work with.
Right.
And that's the strong competence. There are times when moderate competence people get interviews and it's painful because they have to stretch a few stories. The strong competence people have so many stories.
The difficulties, which ones do you tell?
That's exactly right. The moderate competence ones have few stories that they're going to stretch so much and use those few stories for almost every single question.
Right.
So it's so obvious in an interview of who's what. And the desire, you can just tell that they're ready for it, that they're excited for it, that they don't view this as a chore, that they're excited for the opportunity that the interview gives them to grow. When you're on the other side, you're like, okay, yeah, there you are. And that's why like this framework didn't come out of like, oh my God, I got to come up with a framework. It just happened because it's that obvious.
Right. Now, Devi, when you applied to Harvard Business School, what quadrant were you in?
Gee.
Was one of them moderate?
Okay, I'll give you the honest answer. I did not think I was HBS material because I didn't know anybody that went to HBS. I grew up in the Midwest. I thought Kellogg and Chicago were the end-all, be-all schools. And I remember after college, I was at the top of my class, you name it, CPA, blah, blah, blah. And I drove to Evanston probably 2 weeks after my college graduation.
Oh, you knew you wanted an MBA someday.
Yep, I did. And I went to Evanston and I got an actual packet, a brochure at that time because there was no internet. And I said, you're going to see me here in 4 years, so I want a packet today.
Whoa.
And because that was my world.
Yeah.
And I totally see that in candidates now of like, they can't even imagine certain things.
So you had a high desire.
Yeah, I had a high desire for an MBA, but probably at that point, a moderate desire for HBS because I just didn't think that was
possible
for me.
For you.
Right. Because I didn't know. And this is where mentorship matters. This is where pipeline matters. This is where just understanding what's possible
and help
matters.
to get advice from someone who has seen thousands of candidates.
That's exactly right. There were no such thing as admissions
so many
consultants.
Years.
Yeah, my dad was my admissions consultant. There was no such thing. Like my job didn't exist at that point. And it was my dad who said, and this was after I spent a year, I worked at Arthur Andersen, and I was the youngest consultant to transfer and work in their Asian offices when Asia was really opening up. And so when I came back, and that's when I was ready to apply to business school, he said, with your global experience, you should apply to HBS. And I said, Dad, they'll never take me. I didn't go to an Ivy. I didn't do this and I didn't do that. And, it's just like I could list all the reasons. And this is where you have to do the homework and you can't rely on these stereotypes of schools. And so my journey was at that time, it felt so far-fetched. But I got the interview letter. And at that time, it was over a letter that you actually had to open in the mail. And I thought, what? They're interviewing me? And I still remember the interview, still to this day.
Did you do a mock interview with your dad?
Nope.
Just went in cold?
Went in cold.
Good for you.
And no, because my dad would say, okay, recite this. He would have been like the old school type of teacher that I've never,
Yeah, you shouldn't be scripted.
Correct.
Right.
And I was just grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know it was a conversation. I didn't know what to do at that point. And way back when, it was with alumni.
Yeah.
And so it was just with an alum in Chicago, go to his office, and I'm waiting there, and then his assistant takes me in. And, so he comes in a few minutes, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, behind his desk is this floor-to-ceiling photograph of him and his wife skiing with Michael Jordan and his wife. And I thought, okay, this is a different world. And I remember thinking, I don't care what happens in this. And I so remember of like, I'm entering a different world now. And he couldn't have been more gracious and kind and just wanted to get to know me. I was like, this is it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It really was that conversational aspect. And I remember leaving and going through the turnstile in the lobby. And this is what I tell practically all my clients, my interview clients at least. It was, and I'm getting goosebumps like sharing this, I felt I reached a whole new personal best in terms of just speaking and sharing my experiences and everything. And I remember walking through the lobby and walking through the turnstile. I said, I just witnessed my best. And I want to bottle up this feeling so I can return to it when I need to do my best. And I remember thinking, if it ends now and I never get into HBS, I got so much out of this experience.
Right.
And then 2 weeks later, I get the big envelope in the mail. And at that point, if you got the big envelope, it meant you got in. And if you got the little envelope, it meant it was rejection. And so I knew from the size of the envelope.
Wow. I think that's more fun than the way people find out today.
Oh, yeah, with
online.
the online, and they refresh.
Exactly, right, yeah. Okay, one last question for you. Some people might be listening to our conversation and thinking, okay, who I am as a candidate might fall into one of these 4 quadrants, but they might not consider that actually that's the first step. The second step is, okay, how can I better my chances? How do I change my quadrant? What do I do to shape my application in a way that moves me into a more advantageous place?
Yes.
Right?
And so let's talk about how you can move from moderate to strong.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Right.
And the reason it's the downside is you're going to focus on what we talked about in the myths video. How do I differentiate? You focus on differentiation. And that isn't enough to show, and don't do something just because it might sound interesting. Do it because you genuinely want to. So I would rather have somebody use their kind of pre-MBA time to move from moderate competency to strong competency. So it goes back to take chances. Even if you love your employer and you don't want to change, there's more you can do.
Take the assignment that no one wants.
Take the assignment that no one wants. Maybe there's an initiative where you can serve your clients better. Speak up and say, I've seen this. Go volunteer on committees. Maybe there's something else. Actually sit down with your boss and say, I can handle more.
Right.
I mean, absolutely. You don't think your boss is going to say, here you go.
Let me lead a committee.
Correct.
On how best to leverage AI in our company.
That's exactly right. Or AI guardrails, or the ethics of AI.
Right.
There's so many things, timely or just your own interest, that you can do, right? And that's how it grows. Just like, earlier in this conversation, we talked about my client who started with just one startup. She didn't have a grand plan for, I'm going to do 3 startups before business school. 1 led to number 2, and number 2 led to number 3. You just have to do more.
But I always see like your preliminary 2x2 between competence and desire can be diagnostic, in other words.
Absolutely. That's the thing, is stick with, either you have to be your own coach and say, what more can I do? And then do it. Maybe you need your boss, right? Maybe you need a consultant. But I'm sure, if you are thinking about an MBA in the next year or 2, I challenge you to think of 5 things that you can move from moderate to strong.
That's a good way to think about it.
And across your, maybe it's a class you want to take, right? Maybe it's an online class, right? Or something in your local community college. Maybe it is something at work. Maybe it's something in your community. Just do more. And I think that will lead to the next one, the next one, the next one. Versus just being so focused of, I got to do my client work, and that's it, or I got to do what's in front of me, versus let me take a step back and say, what more can I do? And it is a universal law. The more you are doing, the more capacity you have. The more capacity you have, the more ideas you can get. The more ideas you get, gee, that's what informs your goals. Do you know what I mean? In terms of, so to me, I see a direct correlation from what you've done to your goals. The more you do, the cooler your goals are. I mean, I don't have, it's not like I can say your goals are going to be 32% more, effective or whatever. It's not like that, but you can tell because that's how experience begets experience.
Right.
And that's how you can develop your voice of what you want to do with your life.
Devi, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so which quadrant do you fall into? Are you high on desire and low on competence? Maybe moderate on competence and low on desire. Figure it out and change your position in this 2x2 to give yourself the greatest advantage. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Thanks for watching.